So welcome to all people already present. We have many more participants, so we'll wait just a little while to enable them to join as well. Perhaps some practical details already. We have the chat function. Do use the chat function to ask your questions when you have a question, and then we can answer them towards the end of the session. And I see the chat is working, so check there. So more people are joining. Welcome Cindy, welcome Laurent. We are still waiting for others to join. Perhaps to fill the gap, what do you think that is a good timing that we should let the people still wait? Is it they have the academic 15 minutes, which is way too long, of course, but yeah, give us your advice on how much should we wait for the others to join. That makes it a little more interactive for you. 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Yeah, most people are going towards this 5 minutes-ish time frame. So we'll do that, like wait a couple of more minutes and then start, because also we don't want to penalize the people who are on time. And let's give it a couple of more minutes and then we kick off. It's also a bit of a test for us now, starting at 11:30. We used to do it at 12. And so we felt that for a lot of people it was like skipping the lunch, and so 11:30 seemed a better option. We also have quite some participants, so indeed it seems a good option. Disadvantage, of course, is if you want to end the meeting still, then yeah, you might need to rush towards this webinar. But we're coming close to the 5 minutes, and so let's kick it off. So for those present and for those listening later to the recording, welcome all. Today the webinar is about pricing, about getting your margin back on track with a good pricing, because getting a margin on track is pretty basically what's happening or what's on the agenda of many board meetings now. There is this pressure on price, there is this higher costs, so it's all about getting your margin back on track. And we will demonstrate that with a good pricing strategy, you can do that very well. But before diving into the topic, let's first introduce ourselves, then have a small introduction on this topic of margin optimization, to continue then with 3 key takeaways that you can apply in your company and learn from it now and apply it in your company. So the person who was talking is Dirk Blondeel, myself. So I'm senior manager at the House of Marketing at Customer Collective, working there for 12 years, and I've taken up the challenge this year to get the pricing proposition live in Belgium. But we don't do that alone. We have recently, the colleagues of Flow Resulting have joined our group. And at Flow Resulting, there is an extensive knowledge about pricing. And so that's also why Sebastian is joining me here in this webinar. And I let Sebastian introduce himself quickly.
Well, thank you very much, Dirk. Also, warm welcome from my side. My name is Sebastian Glosemeyer. I'm a consultant at Flow Resulting. Flow Resulting is a marketing and strategy consultancy in the Netherlands, and we are specialized in pricing. And during the last 8 years, I've worked on many pricing projects, both in B2C as well as B2B. And today I'm going to tell you more and inspire you about this most wonderful element of the marketing mix, pricing, and also demonstrate this by means of some real-life cases and our work.
All right, so the title says optimize your margin by using pricing. And so pricing is really about getting the price right, getting the price right for your customer. And what you see here on the image, it's the guessing game. The price is right. It's about guessing what a certain product costs. But indeed, pricing is not at all this. Pricing is a combination of analytical, of thinking, of testing into the market, but as well psychology. It's also a way how you communicate about the pricing. And this will be the topics that we will dive into. But getting this price right, why is it so important? We can do the small exercise on the next slide. It's about the power of the 1%. If you have the capabilities, the budget to improve something by 1%, and you can choose by improving your price, your variable costs, your fixed cost, for example, where would you put your money? And you will measure it against what is the effect on the margin. You can already guess the right answer because this is a webinar about pricing. You should invest it in price, because with 1% improvement on pricing, you can have an impact of 11% on your margin, which is like 3 to 4 times more if you would put the same effort in managing your fixed costs. So working on pricing is very important. That's why we said in the beginning, pricing should be on the management board of every company, because margin optimization is on that agenda. But yet we see a strange thing. If the effort that companies are putting now into pricing is not that brilliant. Here we see that that's based on a study that was done in the States, that people are putting more effort in custodial supplies than in discussions on pricing. And so if you could drastically say it is about more discussions going on about choosing the toilet paper than discussing about the price of our products. Yet there is a huge impact of price optimization on the margin, but as well on the company as such. Because recently Tesla, as you see here, Tesla has increased the prices again, and that had an immediate effect on the stock price. Because if price rises, the margin is optimized, and that's a very important element of the evaluation or the valuation of a company. So raising the prices and the stock price has doubled in 1 month. On the opposite, there's an opposite example that we see here in Belgium. Colruyt. Colruyt lacks the price, which is really about having the lowest price possible for their customers, which it's in their core value proposition, which means that, they are constantly fighting with this margin. But the price pressure is there on the price side from the competitors that are active on the Belgian market. But at the same side, there is also pressure on the cost side. So the margin is going down. Margin going down means the company is less valuated, and even to that degree that after 30 years, Colruyt is now exited the Belgian index, Belgian Stock Exchange index, BEL 20. And one of the big investors is Warren Buffett, and you can see the quote here. Warren Buffett is really also evaluating price very much because he's evaluating companies based on the performance they do. And one very important element in that for him is the pricing power. So the better a company manages the price, the better the company can keep a good price point and at the same time be flexible in it, the better they can manage the margin and the more value is in the company. So this is some reasons why we think that pricing should be on the agenda of many companies. But of course, if it's on the agenda, how do you start with it? How do you tackle it? That's the next point, these 3 key takeaways that will help you developing a successful pricing strategy. And for the first one, I give the word to Sebastian.
Well, thank you very much, Dirk. 3 key takeaways that we will discuss during today's webinar. I think all of them are very, very important in order to get a good view on your pricing strategy. And let's start with the first one right away, which is having the willingness to pay talk early. Why is willingness to pay so important? Talking about willingness to pay of your customers means talking about value. And talking about value is crucial when it comes to pricing, because it helps you to set a price that customers are willing to pay and which they will accept. It is also important if you consider the fact that there are basically 3 different pricing strategies that companies can choose from, and one of them is value-based pricing, also known as the most sophisticated one. So let me briefly introduce those 3 different types of pricing strategies to you first. The first one, which probably all of you are familiar with, is cost-based pricing. Simply meaning that you determine your price based on fixed and variable costs, and you add a certain margin. And the insurance sector is a very good example of this. There you have actuaries, and actuaries assess costs based on risks that they have with certain customer groups. And based on those costs, they determine the fee that you have to pay. And then we also have competition-based pricing. It's even simpler, I would say, because you only have to look to the left and to the right and see what are competitors doing. And then you have a bandwidth which tells you which price you could use as well. It's a pricing strategy which is very common when it comes to commodities. Think of a gas station. Sometimes you have more than one in the same street, and they all apply more or less the same price. And then we have value-based pricing. Value-based pricing is known as the most sophisticated strategy because it's the only one which comes from an outside-in approach. Because for the first 2 types of strategies, cost-based and competition-based, you basically don't need a single customer to determine your prices. But for value-based pricing, you need customers because they have to tell you what they perceive as value and what they are willing to pay. Now, as a company, you could basically choose from one of those 3 different pricing strategies. There are some more out there, but basically you could choose from one of those 3. But you can also integrate all 3 into one model, and that would look like this. So first of all, you consider your costs, and cost-based pricing sets the bottom of the price that you need in order to be profitable. Then we have the competition-based view, which sets the battlefield boundaries and which ensures that you're more or less competitive when it comes to pricing. And then finally, value-based pricing shows you the upside potential because it's based on willingness to pay. And what we often see when doing projects with customers in both B2C as well as B2B is that customers' willingness to pay is higher compared to what a cost-based or competition-based strategy would suggest. And I will tell you a bit more about value-based pricing in a minute and how we do this in practice. But first of all, a great example of value-based pricing. A couple of years ago, Prada introduced this paperclip. You might think Prada introducing a paperclip, it's not a familiar product for them, but they did. And I have a question for you, which is, what do you think? For how much was this paperclip sold by Prada? And think about it, and maybe you can add or type your answers here in the link. What do you think? For how much did they sell this paperclip?
I see prices from 150 to 750 popping up.
180, 50 euros, $50. That's a ridiculous price for a paperclip, don't you think? 69. 350 as well, 750. Other best guesses? 50 cents. Well, that sounds more reasonable for a paperclip, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a silver clip, but it was not made of silver. So what you can see here, while we still see some answers popping up, we have a pretty broad range from 50 cents up to 350 euros or 750 even. The answer is they introduced this product for 160 euros, which is very, very interesting because it's a paperclip. But the funny thing is it was sold out immediately after introduction. And what's also funny is that a couple of weeks or months later, they introduced another version of this paperclip, a bronze one, at least the color was bronze, and they sold it for 320 euros. And of course, this is an example from the luxury companies out there, but it's a very good one in order to illustrate the concept of value-based pricing, because you can imagine that this price was not based on costs, but based on customers' perception of value. So how do we determine value in the eyes of the customer in our advisory practice? I would like to illustrate this by means of a case. And this is a Dutch case, which I brought for you today, of Seat. A couple of years ago, Seat approached us and they asked us for help in order to determine the ideal aftermarket pricing strategy to optimize profits. Aftermarket meaning you have a car, once in a while it needs maintenance and you have to bring it to either the official dealer or one of the Seat competitors. So in the Netherlands, we have a Quick Fit, Profile, Euromaster. I think in Belgium, you also have the Q team, for example. And in order to answer this question, what we always do is we first start with analyzing value in the eyes of the customer. And we do this by using a framework which we call the value proposition as a bundle of benefits, meaning that there are different types of benefits that you can think of: product, service, and brand. And those type of benefits, or the sum of all these benefits, represents or justifies a certain price in the eyes of the customer. So in this case, of Seat, these are examples of product benefits. For example, software updates. Are they performed or not? Do they offer you guarantee on working parts? And what is the duration of that guarantee? Do they use original Seat parts? Are mechanics trained and certified by Seat? Is the workshop environmentally friendly? And a couple of others. Those are the most tangible elements that you can think of. Then we have the service layer around it. Single point of contact or not? What is the availability of the workshop? Do they give you additional advice about how to take care of your car? Those are all different examples of service benefits. And then we have the brand. Brand benefits can simply be the brand, who is the supplier, but it can also be the fact that a workshop is specialized in Seat cars or not. And the sum of all these different types of benefits justifies a certain price. Now, if you want to dig deeper into the value perception of customers, what we usually do is we apply two different types of quantitative market research in order to quantify value in a fact-based way. And those are not the only methodologies out there, but those are two which we often use, which is a MaxDiff analysis and a Conjoint analysis. Let me briefly explain them to you. So we started with an inventory of the bundle of benefits, and we got like 20, 25 factors. And first, we want to know, of those 20, 25 factors, which are most important? What should we focus on? And here, MaxDiff is a very powerful but pragmatic methodology that you can apply. Because what we do here is, it's a quantitative survey. We ask customers, respondents, the question, imagine you're looking for a provider for car maintenance. Of the following 4 elements that you can see here, which is most important and which is least important? And they have to make trade-offs. They have to tell you what they think is most important, which is least important. And they do this a couple of times, usually 8 to 10 or 12 times. And the subset of those 4 elements is always a random selection of the total list of 20, 25 factors. So it's a pretty pragmatic way of doing research, but it's so powerful. Because what it tells us is the following. It tells us something about the relative importance of all the different factors. And these are some insights from the SEAT case. And we learned, for example, that guarantee on work and parts was one of the most important elements. We also learned which factors are less important. For example, the fact that the workshop is environmentally friendly. And this gives us so much focus. It gives us focus to improve the value proposition. And it also tells us more about where to focus on in a marketing communication, for example, what you should put on your website or what you should mention in a chat with one of your customers. So now we know that guarantee is important. We want to know more about that. If guarantee is important, what should be the duration of guarantee? Is 12 months enough, or 24 months? 36 or 48 months. And in order to learn more about that, we apply conjoint analysis. Conjoint stands for considered jointly, and it's another quantitative way in order to make trade-offs. And here we actually show respondents value propositions, 2 different hypothetical value propositions that they could choose from. The one from SEAT versus a competitor in the Netherlands, the QuickFit. And those are based on those 5 elements here on the left: brand, guarantee, roadside assistance, etc. Those come from MaxDiff because we know now what to focus on. And then we define underlying levels. So for example, guarantee on work and parts, as I just mentioned, 12 months, 24, 36, 48, etc. And people, again, make trade-offs, and we can identify patterns. We can learn that there's a group of customers who is very price sensitive. They always go for the cheapest option. Doesn't matter who the provider is, what the guarantee is, etc. Then we have very loyal customers of the official dealer. They always go for SEAT. Doesn't matter if they offer roadside assistance or not. And we can use and analyze these patterns in order to tell you something about willingness to pay and price elasticity. And in this case, we, for example, learned the following. We learned that for one of the most important decision-making criteria, which is guarantee on work and parts, that there's a significant willingness to pay. And we also learned something about the elasticity of this element. For example, that increasing the guarantee from 24 to 38 months represents an increase in value, but the step you're making is not that big. From 36 to 48, on the other hand, is way more value in the eyes of the customer. And then again, if you offer 48 months or a lifetime guarantee, that doesn't matter too much for customers. At the time we were doing this project, SEAT offered its customers 24 months guarantee. And you can already guess what we advised them to do. Due to the fact there is significant willingness to pay more for 48 months, we advised them to improve their value proposition and implement a 4-year guarantee. And this is what they did. And it was a huge success because it made the value proposition way more attractive. And it also enabled the company to increase prices. So this is the value part of this case, digging deeper into value perception and willingness to pay. But then we also have the pricing part, because in the Conjoint example we just presented, you also saw that we display different prices. And by analyzing those trade-offs, we can learn something about price elasticity. And in this case, we, for example, learned that with regard to certain parts of the market, certain target groups, customers were relatively price insensitive, meaning that an increase of price from index 100 to 110, which means an increase of 10%, does not have a significant impact on volume or preference share or market share. And this was partly due to the fact that we increased the value that they offered, but it also was a very relevant insight in order to adjust prices, in this case, increase prices, in order to reach your goal, which was optimizing profits. So combining those different insights, the value insights and the price insights, was very successful. And luckily, I can tell you more about what it did for the company. It was a huge success. They were able to significantly boost profits. First of all, due to the fact that they were offering better value. Also, due to the fact that they were able to increase prices significantly without any loss in volume, at least with regard to certain parts of the market. And not to forget, they had way more focus for marketing communication. So they were able to focus on the most important elements. And all these three ingredients combined together resulted in an increase of gross margin of almost 10%. So you can imagine that this was very, very successful for the company. So this is the first key takeaway of today. Have the willingness to pay talk early. Talking about, you can't start talking about willingness to pay too early with your customers because it really guides you in coming up with the right price. And talking about the right price, Dirk already told you it's not a guessing game that you're playing. But the right price depends on different things. For example, how much are customers willing to pay? And what is the price elasticity of the market and different target groups in the market? So keep this in mind when asking yourself the question, what is the right price for my target group? Then we move on to the second takeaway of today, which is one price is no more. This is about price differentiation. You can imagine that your customers are not alike. They differ significantly, and this means that in today's business environment, a one-size-fits-all solution is not sufficient anymore. Let me briefly illustrate this by means of a basic slide, back to basics, a price demand curve, which you might remember from marketing or economics class during your study, which basically tells us that the higher the price, the lower the demand in the market. Makes sense. So now you have a new product or you have a new service and you're looking for the right price. And imagine you come up with an appropriate price, which is €8. This means that there's a certain group of them in the market which for whom this is appealing. They will choose for you. But this also means that there's a big group which you will not reach because other customers are only willing to pay €4 and you won't reach them. On the other hand, you will also leave some money on the table due to the fact that other customers who might go for your offer would have been willing to pay more. They would have been willing to pay €12, for example. And you can imagine that on this price demand curve, there are hundreds, thousands of points. And in order to optimize market share and profit, you would like to kind of skim this demand curve and have an offering for each and every customer, tailor-made. So there's one industry, there are many industries, but one industry in particular who was a forerunner when it comes to skimming the demand curve, which is the airline industry. If you're sitting in on an airplane, chances are high that the price you paid differs from the price the person next to you paid. A couple of years ago, the former CEO of American Airlines summarized this concept very well, because he said, if I have 2,000 customers on a given route and only 400 different prices, I'm obviously short 1,600 prices. So this is the best summary you could give about skimming the demand curve and applying price differentiation. But for many companies, those are just dreams of the future. And I guess that for most of you, there's the need to look for more pragmatic ways in order to skim the demand curve and come up with different options for your customers. Now imagine you would like to purchase an iPhone and you visit the official Apple website, and imagine you would only see one option, the iPhone 12, which costs 909 euros. If Apple would only offer this option to you, this one-size-fits-all solution, they would basically say to you, take it or leave it. And the question that you would have to answer yourself is, shall I buy or shall I not buy? You know probably by now already that this is not what Apple is doing. Well, in fact, they're offering 2, 3, sometimes even 4 different options. And by doing so, they tell you if the iPhone 12 is not what you're looking for, if you're more price sensitive, we also have the Mini for you, which comes at a lower price. But if you're looking for a more premium smartphone, we have the Pro version. And by showing this good, better, best assortment, as we call it, or tiered pricing strategy, you have to answer another question for yourself, which is, which one shall I buy? And this difference in shall I buy versus which one shall I buy makes a huge difference, because research shows that when answering the question, which one shall I buy, as consumers, we are way more likely to actually purchase the product compared to the situation in which we answer the question, shall I buy or shall I not buy? So as I mentioned, this is known as a good, better, best pricing strategy, which is one way to pragmatically skim the demand curve. And I would like to share a real life example, which I think is great, of a company which discovered this way of pricing strategy during the last years. And this company is Basic Fit. You're probably all familiar with it. And during the last 2 years, they made a couple of changes with regard to their membership plans. So until 2022, you could basically choose from 2 different types of membership. The basic membership for 20 euros, which gives you access to 1 club in the Netherlands, access to the Basic Fit app, and access to virtual group classes, versus a premium membership, which comes at a price of 30 euros, and you would get way more benefits, access to more clubs, and a lot of other benefits as well. What they're also doing here is, it's very interesting, I think, and it's very smart. At the bottom, you can see that they are not applying a startup fee for the premium membership. And they will probably do this in order to push customers towards the more expensive membership plan. So this is what they were offering until 2022. Last year, during 2022, they introduced a new version, a new type of membership, the all-in membership, which came at a significantly higher price, 50 euros, which offered distinctive additional value, which is you would get a smart bike at your home and also access to more than 100 bike workouts that you could do. And this is very interesting from different perspectives. First of all, by implementing this, they are now working with a good, better, best pricing strategy. They are targeting an extra group in the market, which enables them to improve market share and profitability. But what's especially interesting here is, this is 2022. Basic Fit had just survived the Corona crisis. And during Corona, most of their clubs were closed due to COVID regulations. And that meant for many people, they had to do home workouts. They had to exercise at home. And actually, during that time, many people discovered that it was very advantageous to do your exercises at home, to exercise at home. So there was a new need, or there was a new market that discovered during Corona with a certain group of customers which were looking for doing sports at home. And by introducing this specific type of membership, they not only extended their membership plans from good and better towards good, better, and best, but they also did this in a very smart way, because they serve specific needs of a new target group. So that was pretty smart. Well, this is what they offered until a couple of months ago, because in January or February 2023, they made new adjustments to their membership plans again. What they did is they changed the basic membership towards a comfort membership. And I will highlight the differences for you. First of all, they implemented a significant price increase from 20 to 25 euros, which is a 25% price increase, which is pretty big. But they also justified the higher price by means of additional value. You could now access all of their clubs in the Netherlands and also access live group classes. And this is very interesting because they justify the higher price with additional value, but this additional value comes at marginal costs because the clubs, they are already there. And the live group classes, yeah, maybe you have to organize some additional classes, but that's not a big chunk of cost that you're adding here. But on the other hand, they increase the average revenue per customer significantly. This is also what they published a couple of weeks ago because they had to publish figures. And you can see here, it's a Dutch article, but it basically tells that the new type of membership that they introduced had a very strong and positive impact on margins. So to summarize this case, this basic fit case, what did they do well? First of all, skimming the demand curve by adding a new best offering, the all-in membership. They were also targeting customers with specific needs by adding this specific type of best offering. And then they were stimulating the middle option because they were applying no startup fee for the premium membership in order to push them towards a higher priced version. And they were also able to implement a significant price increase, which came at only marginal costs. So this is good, better, best, which is a very pragmatic way to skim the demand curve, improve your financial results. But the question you might have now is, how do I get there? And willingness to pay is one of the ingredients you need. Price sensitivity is another. And a third very important ingredient is insight into your leaders, fillers, and killers. Let me explain the leader, filler, killer framework to you by using the following example. Imagine you are visiting a McDonald's restaurant. The question or the choice that you will make for which menu you are going to choose is mainly determined by the leaders. The leaders are the must-have elements of your value proposition. In this case, it's the burger. The burger determines which type of menu you will choose. Then we have fillers. Those are nice to haves. They have average value. They are interesting, but they don't determine which menu you will choose. And then we have killer elements as well. Killer elements are no-goes. They might, in fact, increase the value that you're offering, but in the perception of customers, they are not. Imagine choosing a menu at McDonald's. Almost nobody wants a coffee. You might want to offer a coffee afterwards as an add-on, but not as part of your menu. So although you're in fact offering additional product, additional value, in the perception of customers, this might work out another way. So how to create a good, better, best assortment? I won't tell you much about how to do research in order to learn more about leaders, fillers, and killers. There are different types of methodologies, but imagine you have those insights. How are you going to use them to create a good, better, best assortment? Well, here are some rules of thumb. The good offering that you will have should be an attractive product with a couple of leaders for acquisition. So it should be sufficiently attractive to be chosen. Then we have the better version, which adds more value by adding more additional leaders. And what's important here is the most important leaders should be in this offering only in order to stimulate upsell. And then we have the best version, which is usually aimed at bigger customers or those looking for extra value. Again, here you need a sufficient value for the best version to be chosen. because you can also see that usually this version comes at a significantly higher price. So these are some rules of thumb, and let me finalize this second key takeaway about price differentiation by giving you explaining to you a case to you that we did in the Netherlands for ANWB. ANWB is a company providing roadside assistance, but they are also offering many different financial products, for example, credit cards. And a couple of years ago, they approached us and they wanted to know what is the ideal credit card portfolio for ANWB to increase profitability. At that time, they were basically offering two different versions, a Visa card and a Visa Gold card, different prices, different types of value. Well, we started with the bundle of benefits. We did some research, among others, we did a conjoint analysis, making trade-offs between different credit cards. And this told us something about willingness to pay on the one hand, what is the willingness to pay for different benefits, but also price and value perception. So for example, what we learned here was that the perception that customers had about price was pretty favorable for ANWB, because customers actually thought they were paying significantly more than they actually did. The price for one of those cards was 14 euros 50 per year. On average, customers thought they would pay 70% more. And this is an important ingredient when it comes to changing prices as well, because this favorable price positioning for ANWB results in the fact that you could relatively easily implement price increases without disappointing too many customers. So those were two different types of insights. And then, of course, we learned something about leaders, fillers, and killers. Which elements of a credit card are leaders, fillers, and killers? And here we tested one new element in particular, which was a new feature, emergency money on travel. Emergency money on travel means that when you're abroad and your cash is stolen, but you need cash, you could call ANWB, your credit card company. They would transfer money to a local bank, and then you could collect the money there. And we also used this, so we used all those different types of insights, but the last one about emergency money being a leader element in particular, in order to advise them about their improved credit card portfolio, because we advised them to introduce a good, better, best portfolio, particularly adding a third middle option, the silver card. So here you have the classic card, the silver card, and the gold card. We also advised them to increase prices. They did so, although these were only slight price increases. But very important here, it is in Dutch, but here it says that the emergency money when traveling, 1,000 euros for the silver card and 2,000 euros for the gold card, those were only included in the better and the best option in order to stimulate people to choose for a higher priced option, not the classic card, but the silver or the gold card, because we knew this was a very important decision-making criteria. So, second key takeaway of today, one price is no more. You have to apply price differentiation, and the right price not only depends on how much customers are willing to pay and what their price elasticity is, but also the degree of choice you give them and how price and value are perceived. So far we've been talking about having the willingness to pay talk early, and about price differentiation by means of a good, better, best pricing strategy. And now Dirk will finalize today's webinar with the third key takeaway of today, which is about behavioral pricing, persuading customers by means of behavioral pricing tactics.
Yes, so here it's about what I said earlier. Sebastian talked about the research. It's very analytical. Also the conjoint. You need to be an Excel guru in order to manage this kind of result tables. But now we come to the psychological side of it, which is equally important. So there is three elements that I want to show. The first one is price anchoring. And what does this anchoring mean? It means that it's setting a certain price point. It's setting a reference point. And before I explain it further, the image that the video that we will show now will explain it for you.
amazing product, tremendous breadth. What should we price it at? Well, if you listen to the pundits, we're going to price it at under $1,000, which is code for $999. When we set out to develop the iPad, we not only had very ambitious technical goals and user interface goals, but we had a very aggressive price goal because we want to put this in the hands of lots of people. And just like we were able to meet or exceed our technical goals, we have met our cost goals. And I am thrilled to announce to you that the iPad pricing starts not at $999, but at just $499. $499. At $499, a lot of people can afford an iPad.
So what's happened here in this presentation of Steve Jobs? Well, first of all, he started with saying we have a super great product that is worth €1,000. And this is the anchoring. So this is where you set the price point. So people expect or feel that the product is worth of €1,000. But then saying that you only have to pay €500, half of it, it means that even if €500 is still an expensive price, it means that you get the perception that you're getting a good deal because you expect a value of €1,000, but you only pay the price of half of it for that. Another example is on the next slide. When you start looking for your next flight, you do some research there. You look on these sites where you can find the plane prices, and then you get your results. And take a good look what happens when you start searching for it. Take a good look at the price levels and in which order they appear. So you started with a price point of more than €1,000 and you end up with a price point below €200. So this is also an example of this price anchoring, because the first moment you look at the screen, you see prices above €1,000 and it gives you the redirection, oh my God, such an expensive price, in order to come to the last price, the cheapest one, where you think then, this is affordable. Is this a coincidence that these prices are shown from most expensive to least expensive? Probably not, because they apply this price anchoring principle. Second principle is framing. And framing, you should really see it like the frame of a picture. It's really creating boundaries around the price that you want to put into the market. And a good example is shown on this price. You have here 3 levels. Sebastian explained about the good, better, best. That's applied here. And why is 3 such a good value in pricing? Because you always have a middle in 3. So you can show to your customer, immediately is attracted to the middle one. And that's also what is emphasized here with adding this extra standout, this most popular option mentioned. So it's attracting the customer to the Pro. And why would you want to attract the customer to the Pro here? Because if you craft your pricing very well, you also have made sure that the Pro option is giving you the most margin, the best margin of all of 3 options. So why is the basic then existing? Well, it's to give also the possibilities to others to have a more basic option, but as well also to put this middle one more into perspective. Same thing for the enterprise. And even if a customer starts with a basic or with a Pro, you can always still upsell later on. So what the framing part here is about, showing these three and trying to attract him to the middle, to the most preferred option. Another one, how to look at it from different glasses, is this case of Hans Anders. It's about contact lenses, and normally you buy a package that lasts for 6 months because there are 6-month lenses in it, and you pay a price point of 150 to 200 euros for a set for 6 months. So this 200 euros might be perceived as a high price. So what they did at Hans Anders is they changed it. They changed the perception. They changed the messaging towards saying you only pay 0.39 euros per eye per day. So what they show is a very, very small figure, 0.39, compared to the bigger figure of 150 or 200 euros. So it's really about playing with the value of the price and the absolute value, the numbers that you show. The smaller you can show the number, the more the perception is that it is a cheap and affordable option. This is also the case in the next example of New York Times. They have 2 packs. They have the basic pack and the upgrade pack. And what you see on the left side is they show a price point and a higher price point next to it. But the higher price point is going above the level of the $10. At the right side, they show exactly the same content, but they do it differently. They don't say it's 10 euros for the basic pack and 16 or 17 for the upgrade pack, but they say for 7 euro more, you get this upgrade pack. So purely looking at the figures, the numbers, you see only numbers that are this below this 10 euro level. And this makes a huge impact on the brain, on the psychology, because when analyzing the attractiveness of the offers, 77% would choose the cheapest version in the left side. But you see that the ones who would choose for the upgrade have doubled compared to the second way of presenting it than in the first way. So you're saying exactly the same, but how you show it to the customer can have a huge impact on the result. Third element of psychology effect on pricing is what we call the decoy effect. And the decoy effect is basically about adding an option which gives an impact on the other options. Let me illustrate it with an example. You go to a movie theater and you can buy there your popcorn as well. You have 2 choices, a small and a large. The small is 3 euros, the large is 6.5 euros. If the research the willingness to pay and the what you would choose if you have these 2 options, most of the people would choose for the 3 euro one, because the value for money is perceived more there than for the 6.5. And you can have reasons like, I pay more than double and probably I will not eat it all, so I'm better off with the small one. Now they did an experiment as well, adding an extra large option, costing only $0.50 more than the large version. And that made a huge change, because now in the mind of people, they're not evaluating one versus the other, small versus large, but they have a third option. And this third option brings another view on the 2 remaining options. And so people are now also thinking, okay, for $0.50 more, I'm getting an even bigger pack. So these bigger sized packages become more attractive just by adding this extra price point, even to a degree that there was even more likelihood to buy now the 7 euro product than the 3 euro product. Another example there of the decoy effect, but it's rather the reverse decoy effect, is here with The Economist, where they have 3 propositions. It's the newspaper or the magazines, where you have digital access only, you have paper only, or you have the combination of both. And they priced it in such a way that the traditional customers who buy the paper version, they get the digital for free. So it's the same price, paper or paper plus digital. And the digital only because it's less costly to produce, etc. It's priced at a lesser price point. And when you see the takeoff of the products, you see that about 16% is buying the digital only. Most of the people are taking the combined pack, and nobody is taking any more paper only. Why should you? You can have digital plus paper at exactly the same price. So why should you choose that? And then, of course, the CFO might say, yeah, you sell nothing. You have still this package on 125 euros for the paper only. Why don't you skip it? So let's indeed skip it. And immediately you see already on the screen that this makes a big difference, because now the trade-off is between two products and not three products anymore. And you see two values there. You see almost half the price of the one versus the other one. And this is also having an effect in the sales behind it. The sales shift from 16% to 68% on the digital, and it reduces on the digital, on the full package, digital plus paper combined. So by deleting a less attractive offer, it can have a huge impact on the two other ones. And the last example here is basically showing the same in a slightly different way. And it is what I personally call the ugly duck approach. You have here three options of mowing machines. A good, a better, and a best option. And you see that the middle one is mostly chosen. Adding the ugly duck means that you add a fourth option that is far more expensive than the previously most expensive option. Hence the name ugly duck, not because it's an ugly product, but it's because it's less attractive than the other ones. But what does it mean? It means in the psychology of the people that you have now the basic one, you have this very premium one, and you have two products in the middle. And in the middle is a very attractive region to buy. So there is a shift going on from people choosing the middle one in the first proposition to a balance between the two middle ones in the second one. And what does that mean, again, on the total basket size? That the total basket size has increased by almost 150 euros because a lot of more of these previously most expensive products are bought, because now there is this ugly duck that is just there to, of course, we can buy, so you can sell some products there, but it's mainly there to give a better perception of the prices of the other ones. So this makes then the round complete of the three elements that we wanted to bring to you. So adding to already what Sebastian said is now, how is the price and value perceived, which is also an important element in the finding the right price, and also equally important, how you communicate about it. So how you show your price to your customer within the product range, but also playing with the visualization of it. And so this is, we're about the end of time as well. So we wanted to end now with the possibility to ask your questions.
There was already one question from Annelene about the difference between the decoy effect and tiered pricing, and you already suggested what it is, being the fact that with the decoy effect, you never really intend to sell much of it, and that's indeed correct. So with tiered pricing, you're basically, with good, better, best, you're basically offering three different versions of your product with an increasing price and value ratio, you could say. But with decoy pricing, you're offering a third option, which is basically irrelevant when it comes to rational decision making, but which is not irrelevant when it comes to how we make decisions and taking into account our consumer psychology, because then it really makes sense. And I'm also very glad to read that some of you, you're welcome. I'm really glad that some of you found another big advantage of the way Basic Fit is offering or is actually pricing or invoicing the membership plans. I didn't mention it, but you're totally correct by charging not 20 euros per month, but per 4 weeks. They are indeed able to increase the yearly revenue because you will be able to earn 13 times the membership price instead of 12 times. So very smart, and glad to read that as well. Any other questions? Maybe interesting for everyone who wants to read more about pricing. There's a lot of content on the website of the House of Marketing, the website of Flow Resulting as well, and Ornella already published an article about different psychological mechanisms that one of our colleagues wrote, published here in the chat. And we also have the pricing guide, which you can see in the chat as well. Do you have any other questions?
Seems there's a question coming up.
Well,
it was a thank you message.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Glad to have you here today.
So for the ones who still have an urgent question, you're still happy to ask it. We'll stay here for a couple of more minutes. But for the rest, since the time is the hour is over already, thank you all for attending, and let's keep in touch. We have plenty more content coming up. There's also like a podcast coming up on pricing soon. But if you have questions, also do reach out to us, and we will answer them as quickly as possible.
Thank you, guys.